hard working, dedicated. Would like to dedicate this to those who never hate it. Can't nothing hold us down, can always go another round. Welcome to the underground, real sports with real sports guys. It's a flex that had his mindset, ready for whatever grind next. My mindset, working with the time left, hard working, dedicated. Would like to dedicate this to those who never hate it. Can't nothing hold us down, can always go another round. Welcome to the underground, real sports with real sports guys.
All right, welcome to another edition of Real Sports Guys. We're cooking here, getting up and going. We got a great night planned for you. Please check us out at realsportsguys.com to check out what's going on. We got some really good shows coming up here in the future with some really good topics. So you can catch it on social media, realsportsguys.com and everything else to get us going. We're going to jump right into the show. We're going to start with my man Darnell, and then Coach Cecil will be joining us in a minute. But we're gonna kick off the show a little bit talking about the big fight. And so, we talk about what's trending now. Nothing's bigger than the fight with Canelo and Bud Crawford coming up, and we got our resident, boxing guru here with us, Darnell Kirkland Jr. How you doing, Darnell?
Doing good as always. Fight week.
So, yeah, man, let's get into this, man. Talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking about this fight, the keys to victory. What are you thinking about as it relates to this? It's a big fight, man. I'll say this. When I realized it, for some reason I got nervous, and I hadn't felt that type of nervousness since the Kings were fighting back. Whether it was Hearns against Leonard, like something like I was fighting. I felt I didn't. It hit me this morning. But talk to me a little bit about how you feel about this fight and what you think are the keys.
Well, I think it's a big fight. Big fight for boxing. Going to get a lot of eyeballs on the sport. It's on Netflix, so you're not going to be paying a high pay-per-view price for it. It's something that's affordable for all the fans to watch. I think that's great. But as far as the actual fight in the ring, I think we're not going to know until they get in there because, like the old adage says, there's weight classes for a reason, and Terrence Crawford is pretty much coming from 147 up to 168. He had the fight at 154, but that doesn't make you a 154 pounder. One fight doesn't make you a true 154 pounder. So I think it's going to be quite a big jump for him to go up there. He does have a skill set that, under normal circumstances, he has a skill set that can give Canelo a lot of problems. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to can he take the punch, and how is the extra weight going to affect him on fight night? I think those are big questions that have to be answered. Both of these guys are past their prime, so to speak. This is not the same Canelo that fought Danny Jacobs. It's not the same Canelo that fought Billy Joe Saunders or Caleb Plant a few years ago. But also, Terrence Crawford, he has aged well, but this is not necessarily the same Terrence Crawford that fought Amir Khan. Not the same Terrence Crawford that fought Jeff Horn. But he has aged gracefully, but jumping from 147 to 168 at his age, we're going to have to see how it plays out when they get into the ring.
But if you were as you watch these fighters, if you were talking about a pathway to victory for both of them, what would it look like for a person who hasn't really had a chance to watch these two fight?
For Crawford, there's multiple ways that you can look at it, right? You can look at it from the classic, outboxer type of style. He's going to move from the outside, try to counter, and keep Canelo off balance. But at the end of the day, we've seen that game plan be used against Canelo for years, and it hasn't necessarily been successful because Canelo has perfected that pressure style behind his high guard. He knows how to attack different ways that you could go. If you circle to the left, circle to the right, he has different counters. He's very good with feints. He changes levels very well. He cuts off the people. People say he can't cut off the ring, but I think he is better at that than a lot of people let on. Um, so it can work. It cannot. And also, like we're talking about, Crawford, he's not a young guy. He's 38. So is he going to be able to hold up that game plan over 12 rounds, or is he going to wear down at some point? Those things you have to look at. Also, you looked at Lamont Roach versus Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis and Canelo fighting a very similar style. Sometimes when you fight a pressure fighter like that, it's best to give him resistance. It's like playing against Derrick Henry, right? Derrick Henry's a running back. He's 6'3", almost two. He's probably 240, something like that. You want to get to him before he gets going, because once he starts going downhill, he starts hitting you with that stiff arm. He's a problem to bring down. But if you get to him before he gets his legs turning, you might have a little bit of success. And I think if Crawford can meet him in the center of the ring, he can use a little bit of physicality. But also, we're talking about moving up all these weight classes. How effective is it going to be? But he does have the skill set where he can fight. He can fight in the clinch as well. He has a wrestling background,
Yeah.
so that can be interesting with his understanding of leverage and stuff. And he's a slick counter puncher in there. So I think that can be a pathway for victory for him. So a couple ways he can look at it, but at the end of the day, I think Canelo has a much bigger margin for error, being that conventional wisdom would say he's going to be the much more durable fighter at that weight class and in this weight class. Being that he has fought at 168 for a while, he's even fought a couple fights at 175. He's fought Triple G 3 times, one of the hardest punchers in the sport. He's fought Sergey Kovalev. He's never been knocked down in either of these fights or any other fight that he's fought. He's fought a lot of punches, and he's shown that he has one of the best chins in boxing, right? So I think he has a much bigger margin for error than Crawford. So I'm going to have to lean his way if I'm going to do a prediction.
Yeah, and some of the criticism about the Kovalev was kind of washed. I think some of the stuff that they said about Canelo is like he's caught folks in when he's caught them. But I do agree with you. I think he's going to be a tough one.
I think you can say the same thing for Crawford.
Huh?
I think you can say the same thing for Crawford. He was
Yeah,
he was Sean Porter's last fight. He
yeah.
fought Kell Brook when he was past it. He fought Amir Khan when he was past it. You can say that for a lot of guys.
But I think he's made decisions about that. Most people have been running from Crawford. Like I think Canelo's made strategic decisions, and Crawford's fought people who were willing to fight. It wasn't because he was looking for them fights, and he did what he was supposed to do with them.
As much grief as I give Canelo, if you look back during his prime, he fought guys that were in their prime. He fought Caleb Plant was in his prime. Billy Joe Sanders was in his prime. Danny Jacobs wasn't that old when he fought him. Laura wasn't that old when he fought him. So he's fought Triple G. Triple G, he was older, but Triple G turned pro older. Triple G was at the height of
you
his.
could make an argument Triple G might have won a couple of them, or Triple G might have, So it's interesting how it goes. So you gonna go with Canelo. I can't bet against Crawford, man. I watched Crawford up so personal. When they told that brother he was losing, and he realized he was, and he turned it up. He has a competitive character. He has a way. He digs into a place you don't think he can go. He's gonna be under duress. You're right. This guy goes to places that I probably Sugar Ray goes to when he got to go there. Like there's certain fighters who've been able to go there, and I think he's got that. This is by far his most form. Like Canelo. Everything you said is for real. I just I think he's going to go to a place we're going to say to ourselves, how did he go there? And I don't think many fighters are willing to go there with Canelo. They fall short because of all the things you say. I think he's literally willing to walk through fire, and he's gonna have to do it. So I mean, all the things you're right. I mean, you the guy who looks at the. I'm gonna, but watching Crawford up close and personal, I, I'm, and I know this is it. But if anybody can do it, I think he can do it. I think it's gonna happen by decision. But I think he's gonna get it on a decision. It might even be a split decision. I think we might. My thought is, I think we might get another fight out of this.
Nothing like the Bible said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is the flesh is weak. I think that's what it might come down to.
That's my guy. That's my guy right there.
Yeah.
Take us there to that biblical place. It just the time is right. I had to bring my brother. Cecil, I know you've been listening in. I know you haven't been paying much attention to it, but you know you've been watching them big fights back in the 80s and 90s with Leonard and all of like. There's a feeling like everybody talks about UFC, but there's nothing like a big boxing fight. Like folks dress up. Folks show up in those venues that you didn't think they like fights. So I know you've been watching these big fights for a long time. What is it like? What do you feel like when there's a big fight growing up? Like, what's that feeling been for you?
He's still on mute.
You might be on mute. That was my fault. I had him
back to COVID days. You gotta remind me I'm on mute.
Yep.
Like I was saying, what I heard about, and since you brought it up, and I've been looking at it, and I talked to a good relative of mine that's a big fight person, and a lot of people are hoping that this is a fight that's going to bring that feeling back to people. They think that this is a kind of fight that will get people. They need something to get people interested in the pro fights, and they think this is a fight that's going to do it for the very reasons that both of you are talking about. Same kind of conversation, you know. Crawford's older, but he's smarter, and even though everything looks like Canelo's going to win it, you know, Crawford still could be a sleeper and come up and win the fights, even though he's not favored. But yeah, I mean, back in the day, it's what everybody was talking about. Everybody's getting turned up for it, and pro boxing was the thing. I mean, it was up there, and for a while there, it was bigger than pro basketball.
Yes,
you know. Anytime there was a major fight, everybody was looking to get the pay-per-view or some way to see the fight, you know, and paying good money to see them. And so that was more attractive than anything. You had Sugar Ray Leonard, of course, and those type of people, boxing Tommy Hearns and people like that. That was, people ran to see those fights. I mean, it was a big deal, and over the years it's kind of gone down, but this seems to be garnering a bunch of attention, and as Darnell pointed out, they're doing a lot of things to promote it, let people get it in front of them again. So it sounds like it's going to be an interesting fight. I mean, you got older guys, you know, that's like you said, you got to be careful about them dudes. They just have something in them, you know, that tells them when to go and when they have to go, and so. Could be an interesting fight, and from what I've heard too, a lot of people agree it'll probably go to distance, and so it should be entertaining, and maybe pull people back into the ring and get away from this USC and USF and that stuff. Because quite frankly, that, no offense to anybody, everybody has their place, but I don't enjoy watching that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the role that Turkey's played in this. You know, I saw Doug Fisher talk about the Ring magazine belt has arrived, you know, and the partnership with Ring, and kind of like putting the money up to a point where, you know, before you used to have these ideas where you had the different sides of the street, you had promoters, and he seems to be pushing and creating the kind of fight matchups you see in UFC with the boxing spirit. We didn't talk much about the undercard, and usually these fights you get to, you learn about somebody on the undercard because everybody's looking for the main event, and then there's someone on the undercard that like you're like, wow, who's this guy? You know, it's a way to get exposure. But having Turkey and the money in the table and creating it and working with Netflix, I mean, I don't know how they're going to replicate this, but you're seeing these matchups coming because they're putting the money on the table. Darnell, isn't that what we see?
Yeah, I'm looking at the undercard now. I didn't really think about it. Yeah, I don't really know. I know I heard about the Lester Martinez versus
Yeah.
Christian and Billy. They're also fighting at 168. I know Lester Martinez. He's been in camp with Crawford. That's one of his sparring partners.
Yeah.
And Christian and Billy is also another. They're both contenders at 168. The rest of the names I'm not too familiar with. Actually,
Fernando Vargas Jr.
Ronaldo Vargas Jr. is on
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
And we have Bohacek. It says additional fights. He's fighting Brandon Adams. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Because Bohacek he fought Virgil Ortiz.
Yeah.
He gave him a really good fight.
Yeah.
And Brandon Adams fought Jamal Charlo about 5 years ago.
Yeah. So and they put together some decent undercards or some fights. So those will be interesting as well. Obviously, the main event is the main event.
Yeah,
So we all.
I think this one, a lot of the money's going towards the main card. So the undercard isn't as big as a lot of the cards that he's been doing, because usually he's been putting multiple championship fights on the same card. I remember when Shakur Stevenson was supposed to be fighting Kid Austin, that was an undercard fight.
Yeah.
And Kid Austin ended up pulling out. Yeah. And Shakur ended up fighting Josh Padley.
Yeah.
That was there are fights like that he doesn't end up putting on the undercard.
Yeah. Yeah, probably because they give both of them a lot of money. So yeah, that probably is the budget on the undercard. You're trying to make it pull together because you're making sure they both get paid to make this thing happen. And so it's good. All right, we get to the college football thing. We got upset weekend down in Starksville, Arizona State. It's just tough play to play when they got them cowbells rolling. I don't know how much y'all had a chance to watch that. Darnell, I know you've been coaching, but these early upsets, man, I think are really interesting. We got Baylor over SMU, and then the big one is South Florida over the Gators.
I'll say Ohio beat West Virginia.
Ohio beat West Virginia, and so this idea, we got this NIL and close, and there's some teams who have built some stuff. They're not major, but they built some solid programs. South Florida is one example. Week one we can't jump into too much, but if you're Florida, you're in trouble. You're not thinking about you're not thinking that you're going to lose this game out the gate, and so
yeah, he's on his way out.
He's on his way out.
He's on his way out. I think this seat it's beyond the point of being hot. It was hot 2 years ago, and it's just getting hotter and hotter. It's boiling right now. So I think it's time for him to get out of there, because he's driving in Phoenix with no air conditioning.
That's a good
Coach, when you look at you come out, especially in the way that things have changed in college football with the playoffs, and so everything's not out of pocket. If you lose early, you have a chance to kind of build back in the momentum. But there are some losses, and we see in some of these teams that would be mid-majors or would be beyond the Power Four showing up, and teams are building. What are you noticing about this era in terms of this in how you handle losses at points like this versus how we might think about it before?
Well, I think for me, and I don't want to oversimplify, but you hit it when you start talking about the NIL, and let's just forget NIL and just talk about the money that's going on, right now. I think it's easier for a mid-major or small school to pull a program together and have what you need to have upsets and have what you need to win big games, especially early on, than the bigger schools, because there's too much rebuilding that has to be done. And when I say rebuilding, I'm talking about mentality. Okay. And from what I've seen watching some of the games, there's just this sense, like when I watch Alabama, they are not cohesive at all. You know, they are not that juggernaut mentality, that feel of a team that's just going out to dominate people at all. And again, it's because you got so many moving parts right now, and including their new coach, but you got so many moving parts that the key to coaching right now is to pull your team together and have them play the ones that are playing together, the ones that you get that sense of, they're going to be fine. But I think some of these smaller schools have more of that because they got more players returning, and it's nothing's easy ever at this level. But you got a better opportunity to pull people together and have a strong team. To me right now, the team that exemplifies it the best and the most in how they coach themselves is Colorado. I mean, they're still got a unified group. How well they do, we'll see. They don't necessarily have the talent still, you know, to really dominate. But he's really focusing on, and that's why building this cohesive unit of people to play. And that's why I think the issues with some of these bigger schools is that they aren't building like they did before. Because again, talent is one thing, but then you got to bring everybody's got talent. It's how do you pull all those guys to work together? And it seems to me with the smaller schools, it's a little bit simpler early on. Now, we'll see what happens later in the year if these coaches can pull it together. But, you know, but I agree with Darnell. The guy in Florida has been, he's definitely no longer on the hot seat. He probably should get his resume in order.
Yeah, I mean, you said something real interesting about how the smaller schools have some continuity in all the way some of these bigger programs are turning over. I mean, when I saw what happened with Oklahoma State against against Oregon, I feel Oregon was going to beat Oklahoma State. But if you would have told me Oklahoma State would lose a game, was it 69-3, 68-3, whatever it is, like
69-3, yeah.
69-3, like that, that's a and we'll talk about this later in the topic. When the head coach is concerned about how much in basically not telling the truth, how much Oregon is spending versus developing the talent, like you could hear he's always making excuses, and there is no way in the world he's got enough talent in that room. But right, they haven't pulled together, and they got exposed. And in the beatdown just happened like that. You would have never thought I would never thought Oklahoma State would get beat like that. If you had told me, they got beat 50-35, I could go with that, right? But but that was a breakdown in the kind of stuff you're talking about, Coach. It's like people aren't rowing the same direction. Something folks is transactional. There's something that's allowing you to go in there and not respond. And it wasn't like that's the kind of score that would happen if Southeast Oklahoma State went there trying to get a payday. Like that's
right.
That's a payday move. That's not a two major like what you're saying. And so I'm noticing that type of. I'm not saying they quit, but there's something that's missing that you have to really kind of pull together when you're bringing in. I don't know how many players, but a lot of these teams, sometimes these teams are bringing in 40, 50 new players, right, or 30 players, right, including first year freshmen, right. So you hitting on something. A game that kind of hit me, Darnell, I want to come to you, is like two programs, really interesting programs, Oklahoma and Michigan played. I mean, you've coached against Bryce down there, or you at least witnessed Bryce. You didn't coach against you.
Yeah. I watched him play a
You
few
watched
times.
up close, personal. We obviously seen a trend with some young quarterbacks. We've seen that with with Manning. Bryce came out there like Venable is like 25-0 against first time starters, something like that. Like so, you knew he was coming in. But I thought that the two teams could walk away with something. Oklahoma definitely can walk away. What was your thoughts about that game and about Oklahoma? And then where you think Michigan can grow as Bryce grows?
I think Oklahoma's building something. I think they're better, definitely better this year than they were last year. Venables, he's. I think he's finding his way as a head coach. I think he's doing his thing. But as far as Michigan goes, they're on their way. But I still don't think Their offensive line is at the point that they're going to be.
Hmm.
I don't think it doesn't look like typical Sharon Moore offensive line. I don't think. I know they had a big injury to the five-star Andrew Babalola. He got hurt before the season, and I think they had another injury too. Um, so I know they're a little thin over there, but um, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's the same. And also receiving talent. I know they're building it, but I think Bryce is going to look better the more experience he gets. And but yeah, it's his first big challenge versus a seasoned defensive coordinator. I know he's the head coach, but I believe he does still call the plays right on
Yeah,
defense.
oh yeah, he was calling this year because he was in a tough position. Like he was in a vulnerable position, and he needs to have a good season this year. And so I think he took over the reins of calling the defense this year, which I think is
Right.
great for a young quarterback. That's a lot of coaching tape for Bryce. I, 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 I did you feel like they needed to let the training wheels off a little bit more with him and let him play, or did you think they put the right dosage with him in that game?
I think they did what they're comfortable with. I mean,
Okay.
you don't want to like. I know we talked about Fernando. We talked about Fernando Vargas Jr.
Yep.
on the undercard. You don't want it to be like when he fought Oscar De La Hoya,
Yep.
or when your boy Adrian Broner fought Marcos Maidana. You don't want it to be like, oh, okay, he ran into the fire too early,
Yep.
and now you're ruining his confidence and all that kind of stuff. So I think they try to move it the right way, and I trust in the coach to do what they feel is best.
Yeah, they got an interesting process. I mean, coach, I'm thinking about this. I mean, you coached a lot of different sports, done a lot of different things. I mean, Sharon Moore is going to, for the next two games, not really be there, right? Like, I mean, and he talked about it being a coach. Like, how do you plan for something like that? Like, I can't even imagine. They got Central Michigan and they got Nebraska. Like, how do you work through something? It's probably something they obviously try to map out in the preseason, have a plan for it. But how would you work through that?
Well, that kind of stuff, it goes back to what I said earlier. That those types of things are systematic.
Yeah,
Okay, those things are laid within the system because anything through the course of a season can happen, and so everybody, your coaching staff, that's why coaches meet all summer long and eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. And, these are the things that go on in those rooms besides the X's and O's is how do we do this? What if I go, who our system says this, so just stick with your system. It's like, what we do in higher ed, you've got policy, you've got, a playbook to go by, what you have to do, and you have to stick with that policy so that you don't want to diverge from it. So people are wondering what you're doing. Okay. And that particularly pertains to your team. Even though Sharon's gone, the team has to hear the same language. They have to hear the same, quips and quotes and things like that along the way. So that's built into the system. It's not one of those things, well, I'm going to be gone, so let's talk about this. They already took care of that a long time ago. Okay. So it's just part of the system that you put in and make sure that everybody just maintains that.
it's interesting because he was the person along with a couple when Harbaugh had to move away. But the way they had Harbaugh suspension, he could coach. I think during the week he wasn't there for game day. And they
Right.
said, and then y'all went on one national championship. So then they're like, nah, you can't coach at all that week. You can't be around at all. It's like, oh, you're going to do it to me? So he's got to navigate that. We'll see how they get to the other side of that. But that's one thing. And, and I think Oklahoma's quarterback, was it Mateer or whatever? That's a,
John
we'll see
Mateer,
how,
he was a
yeah,
quarterback
Mateer.
at Washington State
he was at
last
Washington
year.
State. Yeah. He's got something. Uh, we'll see how far it goes, but I feel like he got something. He rushed for 2D. I mean, he was throwing sidearm on it. Like he's got something that I
And if
think,
you,
yeah,
or if you saw Deion Burks, who was personal. Deion Burks, the
yeah,
receiver from
from
Oklahoma.
yep,
Yeah, he played at Belleville, so he was there before Bryce,
yep.
the fifth-year senior. So he played with Christian Dureed when they lost in the Final Four to Donovan Edwards and them at West Bloomfield. But yeah, he was saying that like, man, Michigan never offered me. I'm about to get busy on y'all. I'm about to get
He got busy, and
He
Michigan
did.
without one of their best defensive players for a half. So he kind of came in second half. But I think both of those teams can bounce back. They might be able to make noise going down the end of this. One of the things I wanted to kind of build on this, and as we kind of move into the Cypher a little bit, and it kind of gets on this trend. We've talked a little bit about college football and stuff, and we're seeing kind of in the opening week of the NFL football is folks react after about 1 week. Like people, like we got a text thing going last night. I ended up going to bed late because folks thought it was a 5-line fire. It's only week 1. But one of the things I've said, do you believe your lying eyes? You come up with all kinds of things. Our team's going to the Super Bowl, or our team's not going to win another game. There's all these things, these emotions we see on the college level, we see on the pro level after 1 week or 2 week of things. I'll start with you, Coach. Coming out of here thinking about the NFL first weekend and maybe some of the games and some of the things. What were some of the things you've seen that you say, okay, this is pretty sound, like this is something I think I can see going forward, versus, I'm just getting emotional, I'm jumping off and doing it. But I've seen some things with this team or this thing, and I'm like, this is something that could continue to happen. Is there something you saw this weekend that you say, wow, I feel like this is who they are because of this?
Well, there's some early on when just following what was going on in the NFL, the trades and the draft, and there just seemed to be a different energy to the NFL this year for me, and that it was going to be exciting to watch because you really weren't going to be too sure what was going to happen from week to week, and I think this weekend showed it. I mean, you got a shootout with the Bills and the Ravens, and whoever expected that to be, a little bit less or tough, but there was a shootout there. Then you see some teams that battle pretty hard, throughout the games. And so I just think that this season in particular is now, let me back up. I think the people that have been on top in the last couple of seasons are still going to be on top. I think you're going to see the Lions. I think they're going to be on top of the division. Are they going to run 14 games? Nope. They're going to lose some games this year, but I think they're still going to end up on top in the playoffs. I think the Bills, obviously, I shouldn't say that. The Bills will, as long as people continue to let Josh run crazy out there. They will. The Ravens are going to come back. They went down a couple of seasons ago, lost a couple of beginning, and then ran the table. They'll recover. But I think you're going to see some good football games. I think there's some energy in the NFL right now. Maybe the younger players and the trades have made a big difference, but I think you're going to see. And that's why I'm not putting anything on this first week. There's a lot of reasons. Case in point, there was a lot of go around last night about a quarterback from Chicago. But when you look at what he's been up against and again, I don't think he's I don't think he's going to be that superstar, that guy maybe, but he's had 4 different offensive coordinators or 4 different head coaches, 3 or 4 different offensive coordinators, 2 or 3 different quarterback coaches, sometime imaginary offensive line and everything. I'm not willing to throw him under the bus yet because there's no sample, and a brand new coach who comes from a team that was loaded offensively, so he got to give him time too. I mean, he had an offensive line that was one of the best in the league. Running backs, they were best in the league. 2 of the best receivers in Minnesota's history, and so, or in the Lions' history. So you got to give him some time to bring things around too. So I'm not thinking that we got to shoot anybody down early on. I still think it's going to be a competitive season for a lot of teams. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the teams we've seen before are going to be on top, but it's going to be more interesting.
Darnell, are things that you've seen, like, we sometimes lie to ourselves, but then you look at it just like, I think this is pretty solid. I think this is a trend for this team or this unit or this player. Is there something that you say, I'm confident that what I'm seeing will continue?
Well, I think the Steelers gonna make me get Sunday ticket. Like make me get NFL Sunday ticket so I can watch them. But yeah, no, there's a couple teams, specifically the Jets. I think that was a good game. The Jets and the Steelers. I think both of them have made strides. I like the way that Justin Fields looked in that game. I think they're poised to, you know, make some big improvements. Um, Other teams, I know the Patriots lost to the Raiders, but I think they're getting better. I think they're getting better too. I think the Colts is actually a big one. That was a big surprise. The Colts put it on the Dolphins. Daniel Jones is a new quarterback, and he balled out. So, yeah, there's a few teams, that with the NFL and the way that they do their draft and stuff like that, it calls for more parity. But for some of these franchises, the more things change, the more things stay the
Uh-oh. You're
Yeah,
not already in the can't trust it.
same.
yeah. I would, um, a sneaky one. I think it's interesting. I've been listening to the folks, and we were going back and forth about the Steelers and the Jets, and the way the Jets ran on the Steelers. And I was listening to podcasts a little bit on the Steelers, and some of the stuff that's happened up front. But the one thing I think is going to be sneaky, that's going to be real, is I think the Jets' offensive line is going to prove to be it. There's something about the way they playing.
Well, they're invested in it. I mean,
They they
they
invested
should.
it, but it hadn't delivered. Now it's delivering, and I think it feels like that Mawai line, and feel like they got a coach who understands you got to win on that line of scrimmage. They might not, like I said, they might. I was saying the text, they might win 6 or 7 games, but at least half them teams they lose to will lose the following week because they are establishing something that I think is consistent because their coach is consistent. I, that
And
is, it's going to be a
I do
dogfight
want
with
to
them.
say they're in the
Huh?
division. They're in the division with the Dolphins and the Patriots. I think they're
Yeah.
gonna win a couple games.
But
Well, I
you couldn't
think,
always say that,
Yeah.
right? You couldn't always say that. Even with that, you couldn't always say that with the Jets, right? You may
yeah.
say that with a little bit more
Well,
certainty with that group. The other thing is what's happening out there, and it's just his trend. You got to believe it until it's a lie. Hardball year 2 is hardball in year 2.
mm-hmm.
And,
True.
and the way they look is the way hardball teams look in year 2. And so I feel like, uh, you know, that's going to shake out in a different way. And I think Kansas City walked out like, we got a problem. we got a problem on our hands. And I think that's going to be consistent around it. The other thing that I would say that is clear is that teams who are going to be at the top and understand, and it's funny how this thing's changed, is, you see this trend, the teams who have gone deep um, run the football. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
got into this whole passing and all this stuff and running backs and all this stuff. There's this resurgence to running the football and getting physical because of the way defense are playing, that if you want to get down, you better figure that out, right? You need to be consistent in that space, and teams are doing it either by having a good running back core, having a quarterback like Josh, or someone who can also be part of the running game. But that part is those top teams are moving on that. So these are trends. Everybody's all over the place. You got fantasy people dropping folks, picking folks up because they think they're gonna be good. You got everybody is panicking right now because their fantasy quarterback only got them 15 points this week, and they move like everybody is struggling. but don't believe your lying eyes. We're gonna get under the radar real quick on this one to move on to our next topic, and this is one, Coach. We've talked about this. There's a little thing bubbling under the radar I've been noticing. We just had this article about Danny Hurley was thinking about quitting, contemplating quitting, and resigning. Mike Gundy, before the game against Oregon, was complaining about the Ducks spending $40 million, which was a lie. Ohio State was the one who spent the most money last year. All these coaches,
That was
I heard,
reported.
huh?
I said that was reported.
That was reported,
No,
right? It
no,
was
no, somebody put the number out there, $20 million. But I bet Oregon was very close.
Oregon might have been very close,
No,
but it wasn't 40, right?
it definitely wasn't 40.
And what I've learned working very close with athletics and looking at this, it don't matter how much money you spend if you don't know how to execute. Like, even with Ohio State, they didn't get them a victory over Michigan. And even if they won a national championship, it's still painful, right? So it's how you utilize it. So you still got to execute as a coach. And I feel like, Coach, you and I talked about this, Cecil. Like, there's this thing about people running away, as Tomlin would say, from things that are about coaching. Talk to me, Coach. I'm gonna start with you, man. What's all this hedging like? Where are the real? What's going on with the profession of coaching, man? And we
They're
saw with
panicking.
Hurley. We saw Hurley up close and personal.
Yeah, they're. I think it's panic. I
Yeah,
think the pressure of winning, the addition again of money. That's saying, hey, we're going to give you this money. Now you really have to produce. And I think when things don't turn out the way people want, they have to find a way to excuse it. They got to find a way to pass it off on it's this. This is the cause of it. This is why it happened. Well, we talked about Hurley. He was his own worst enemy.
yeah.
He got caught up in the hype, that for himself, and maybe that's what's happening too. Some of these coaches get caught up in the hype, but I think it's another layer of pressure, and once that pressure starts, then they start to look for ways to out. This is the reason why, or we can't do this, or like I said, we're not giving as much money. That's why I can't win. And I just think it's just pressure on coaches. They're trying, and again, to their defense, they're doing the best they possibly can, but there's a whole lot more expectations of them today than there was even 5 years ago in terms of winning and losing and their place in the picture, because people, they want that ROA, they want that return on, or ROI, they want that return on investment, even now in college sports. And when people are pressuring for that, you start to panic. You start to look for ways to get yourself out or get yourself out of trouble, which isn't healthy. I mean, and that's why I think coaches quit. It's not healthy to have to do that. You don't want to start placing blame on kids. You don't want to start placing blame all over the place in other areas. But also, you want to keep your sanity. So it's like, if I can't do it, I got to get out.
It's interesting because I mean, on the back, like we we were right there at the press conference at the Mile Invitational. Danny Hurley sitting right in front of me. And at first, his eyes, and I'm looking, I'm like, what's he fidgeting for? And he pulls, like, and all these coaches, like, it's a dance with, like, all these good coaches sitting there. Everybody's excited about being there talking. Hurley's kind of looking. And then he grabs, he needs to put his hat on. He puts on a Final Four hat. Stunned. Right, coach? It felt like, oh, he's going Jersey. He going to stun up here. So he already saying
Right.
we going to stun up here. And then there's they go and they play with they have this thing where they each get paired up with a kid, they shoot, and then they're supposed to come over to the tables, and then we all get a chance to talk to him. He exits stage left. Okay, so now you stunting up in here. Then you get in, and we know the Mile Invitational, Darnell, you been up in there. Once it start rolling on you, all these guys' faces, what I say, 24 hours from now, a couple of these cats ain't gonna look the same. Once that Maui tournament start rolling on you, the pressure different. He lose the first game. Come into you remember coach come in, kind
Oh
of like
yeah.
don't want to be like, and acting in ways that you would never let players act.
He's blowing up on the refs.
Yes, the way he acting out there, like you would never let players get away with that. Yet we're okay with this same behavior, and we see this going on and on with coaches. And then we see Bill Self. who's equally, you can see who is stressed out about these changes, but he deal with it totally different. He's still trying to figure out how to invest, right? You see all this different stuff, and it's interesting how some of these cats are handling the pressure in ways they wouldn't allow their players to do it. Darnell, you've had a chance to go. One of the things I appreciate about Darnell is a not student of the game, but person who's trying to understand coaching. This cat, if there's a clinic to go to somewhere, I'm like, where you at? Oh, I'm down at Georgia at the Georgia Pop Cup learning. I'm at Eastern Michigan. So you've had a chance to be around and watch these guys operate and talk behind the scenes. What are some of the things you've noticed are different around those coaches who I think with time, like you've been around some coaches who clearly love to teach, and that's kind of a secret. What have you learned by being in those spaces as you've seen coaches navigate this space? Because you've had a chance to hear some really high-level coaches talk about what they do.
What, in relation to the Dan Hurley thing, or just
No,
a
in relation to
completely
coaching in
separate?
general, Hurley's just one thing. Like the
Oh
whole
yeah,
idea of coaching, yeah. Hurley's just an
there are coaches.
example.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of coaches that have different approaches and stuff like that. That's some stuff that's interesting, and like you said, the passion of some of these guys that they love what they do. Like you mentioned, I did get a chance to get down to Georgia this year for their clinic, and Glenn Schumann was talking to us about coverage, and he branched off into different decisions he made in different games and why he made this decision and what went into that. Until they kicked us out. We was up there for hours, man. And it was like, okay, we turning the lights off. We gotta get up out of here. Yeah. So I think of just the passion of it. You know what I'm saying? As far as guys that really love what they do. Um, yeah, I've certainly learned a whole lot about the game of football from different perspectives, um, from different positions as well. Like I've obviously I'm an offensive line guy, but I've also listened to running back coaches. Also listened to quarterback coaches and defensive coordinators, D line coaches, just to get their perspective on things. And it's been a fun experience.
And the reason why I raised that, because this is why I can get back to Cecil about this. This. I've seen this trend of two coaches. It might be other categories. There's the coaches, and it doesn't mean they can't do the skill stuff, but there's the coaches who fall in love with the guru is and that system genius stuff. And there's the coaches who just love teaching. And that translates in ways that players connect because the way that they work with players, right? There's in how they see results are a little bit different. One thing I've learned watching Saban, got to appreciate more because he used to bother me a lot of times. He loves practice. Like, he loves teaching, like to a point where you can see
And
it.
Kirby
And
the same way.
huh?
Kirby, I said Kirby the same way.
Kirby, same way, right? They and because they do that, they don't have any excuses. I'm gonna get whoever's ready. Like you coach, do you see that difference? You work with young coaches and things like that. Do you see these emerging two schools of thought and how they're able to navigate this environment? If I'm saying that question correctly.
I think some of the younger coaches that I've come across and seen are, how do I put it? They seem to be more concerned or into the X's and O's of things as opposed to building the character of players, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the reason, and again, it depends on what level you're at, but the teaching part of it for teaching's sake and making sure that people understand the overall larger picture of things, I'll say, is what I think people like Saban and Kirby and basketball-wise, Self was like that early on. But now because the players are I don't know if they think they're more mature, there's less of that particular focus on the real fundamentals of playing the game a little bit. I think some of that's been lost. I was listening to listened to a guy talk, and not, again, what he said was that people are more interested in doing a hezzy dribble than passing to an open man breaking to the basket.
Yes. Go ahead, Darnell.
I'll say something about this because to me, a lot of the X's and O's guys are. I think that a lot of those guys love to talk, love to teach. That I've come across. So I think the real two schools of thought are the X's and O's guys and the motivational guys, or the guys that more likely are in the school of players over plays, and their most things and their biggest emphasis is effort. You know how like the old school coaches back in the day used to always say, "I don't coach effort. I don't coach effort because you on the field, you better, what I'm saying, it's implied, what I'm saying, you better bring effort, what I'm saying." But some coaches, that's the first thing, what I'm saying, like before we get into any of the X's and O's stuff, this is what's expected, what I'm saying. That's one thing. That's one thing I've came away with too.
And the reason why I talk about system is that systems are only good as players, and so what the evaluation isn't how do I get this player to where I need to be. This is my system, and it's almost like, and some folks get to the point where they, some people can see where I got to take you and where I got to have you by week 5. Some people like, well, I need you. You got to come with certain stuff. It's almost like, am I gonna cream and get students who only took AP classes who can work it and talk about how I'm teaching versus am I going to be also building capacity? And I think I see a lot of coaches who want finished products versus coaches who understand how to develop talent and produce that. I think those are two different schools, and they're getting away from things. I was talking to a couple players recently. I said, look, people talk about a lot of different stuff. At the end of the day, I don't care all these systems, all this stuff. At the end of the day, good teams do two things. They control the line of scrimmage on the offensive side and the defensive side. Somehow they
And
do
they
it.
don't turn the ball over.
They don't turn the ball over. Like you can come up with whatever you got to do, but the teams who understand that and they execute on that win. And all the other stuff is just what it is, right? And then to do that, you have to teach people how to do that. So and what I see the difference when I see a Kirby Smart is that they teach that stuff. They teach the extra stuff you got to do on a regular basis at a higher level. They emphasize it. And other folks, I feel like, want to cream it and don't want to go to X. It's too much work to bring that person up, right? They're not able. I see this in organizations, in talent development. People will make decisions about people, and I'm like, that's a talented person. But you don't want to build nobody. You want something else, right? They can't see it. And I think to be good today, if you're going to be sustainable, you got to be able to see something, and you got to get a person to see that in themselves. I think that's too much work for some of these coaches. The ones who can get it gonna eat all day long. The ones who don't gonna give you all these excuses about another roster getting $20 million.
Yeah, but also you gotta understand. Well, also gotta understand what you can work with and what you can't. As far as
Yes.
what like Kelvin Sampson says, uh, I don't recruit problems. I don't
Yes.
recruit problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. DeVon, it's like we're always saying about our guy, Coach Tomlin too, when he says that he talks about if this player can't do X, Y, and Z, he can't do this, this, and this. That's coaching because he's an athlete. Otherwise, he wouldn't be out here. He's capable of learning and doing things, but if you're not getting him there, then that's coaching. I mean, that's But again, a lot of people they feel like they don't need to take that time out to do that because they're coaching things on a whole other level. Like you should be expected to do that. You should be expected to know that. But again, you got to remember what your job is. It's still your job to coach people. It's still your job to make them get better. It's still your job to have them improve, and, to the level of expectation where they're earning that money. But I think some coaches figure you're getting paid, you should figure it out.
And
And
I'd love to ask you another part of that, Coach. You just hit this. I don't know if you and I even just talked about this because you just hit on one. Another part of being a great head coach, and we've seen this on the basketball side and the football side, is your ability, and it's even more important on the football side because of the number of players, is to not only coach players but coach coaches and
mhm,
and build a capacity for them to grow as leaders. And you also see that whether it's basketball, women's side, or men's side, or any sport, as I get around it, your ability to build and grow, not just get finished products, but to build coaches and have people evolve in those spaces is an important part of the coaching. So a really good head coach is also building the capacity. One of the things that Tomlin said recently, he said, "I got a veteran team, and so I can't just do. I have to really think about how I'm going to engage this team." Because
mhm,
I have a highly veteran team. So I love about this because it's going to stretch me to think differently and more creatively about how I reach them. Who thinks like that? That also means he's got to talk to his assistant coaches about how they do this with a team that has a different kind of composition, right?
mhm,
And knowing that changes, I see great coaches have they really have a sense of that and how they get not only themselves ready, but their coaches, their crew ready. And even one of the things Dan Lanning was talking about, they do like a retreat. And like a lot of coaches do retreats, but Lanning seems to got something going on over there. The way he's building his staff, the way he builds his team, the way they come together. Like there's an approach to this that I think
mhm.
people are looking at leadership capacity building. I know that's something that Saban, but I think that's really required at this time when it's so transactional. So that was something that I know you spend a lot of time with coaches and helping with that kind of thing, but I think it's around that kind of framework. Darnell and I talked about it in his own coaching career. Getting around players like he's with my old defensive coordinator, Coach Tess. Who is a guru. He dropping gems all the time, right? He he,
Yeah.
he dropping dimes all the time, and so that whole idea of how you coach coaches is that creates what we have in the future. So we have a whole iteration of coaches. Everybody's got their own video, own guru, but can you coach?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was, and Darnell, well, you probably know this too by now, but I was pretty fortunate back in the day when I was coaching at Augustana, and we won a couple of national championships. And I remember Bob Reed telling us after our third year with our coaches when the season started out, he goes that he almost really hated where we were because he said when we started out the program, started summer practices, everything was great. They could do nothing wrong. No matter what happened, we patted them on the back, kept them going, kept them positive. And he goes, but now we have to scrutinize everything,
Mm.
Because we were past that level of building the program. Now
Mm.
we were at that level of expectation. And so, if we did a time run, they never made the time the first time, no matter what. They just never made the time. We used to laugh about that. They're never going to make it. And new coach would say, what do you mean? They're not going to make it because he's not going to let them make it.
Yeah.
They're going to have to run harder to make it. And Bob, our head coach, said that, it's great to be here, but it takes the fun out of it a little bit because our
Mm.
expectations have to be higher and what we demand of them have to be higher than it
Mm.
was 2 years ago.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
yeah, that just, like you say, you learn these listening to good coaches, and he obviously had a great career, but that's what you're talking about is that you got to learn where you're at, and your coaches have to understand it too, because then we had to coach differently then.
Yeah.
We couldn't let guys not take the right steps like we did before and say, okay, this is what you need to do. Perfection was what we had to have. So.
And one of the things I heard Don Staley talk about how she shifted along with this. She's not only coaching her players, but she's coaching their families. Don on a whole
That's
nother
deep.
level. Don on,
Yeah, that's deep.
Don on a whole nother, like she building expectations around because the impact the families have on it. She's building, and part of today, and we'll end on this. The reason why I said this is when all this stuff came down with the court decision and where we're going. One of the things that really became clear when I was in these meetings around this stuff is that you take away all the noise. Kids are going to make decisions. What you have to do is decide what you want the program to be. And if you can make it, what I use, the example I use at the college level, if you can build your version of the Baltimore Ravens or the Pittsburgh Steelers, anybody who's ever played there, they're almost like an alum. They come back. The way they think about that experience, you could be moving towards something. So you invest in them, and they make the decision about what they're going to do next. But you invest in them like they're going to be here all the time. Like you just got to start with that. And what happens is the word gets out on the street. I have so many cases where I've heard, especially college football, where kids have left and then they return to their own institution because they realize the grass wasn't greener.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, wow, what y'all doing over here? I've talked to a couple people, even at Wisconsin. They've gone because of even the academic support. They still have students who call them back because of the way they really invest in support in people's academic growth. They're like, we have none of this stuff where we go, right? And that's a beautiful thing because you can't chase the ghost. You just got to decide what it is you want, and you got to find those kids who are looking for that, right? And in that mix, you're going to have some students who make some decisions to go, but you're going to have more of them who are going to lean into it. Coaches have an opportunity here to be much more substantive. And so that's part of this whole conversation. I'm constantly hearing this. So I'm glad we were able to talk about this a little bit. I'd love to get some coaches on. We've had a couple coaches we've interviewed and got a sense of their origin story and how they've grown. And some of the things we talked about are the kinds of things that were essential to them as coaches as they developed. Whether they were, Bielema talked about working with Hayden Fry and learning in that experience, and now then having Barry Alvarez and how that shaped him as a coach is, it's important for the work that goes into our assistant coaches and all this stuff to change it. This environment's going to change, but there are some things. I mean, I've walked in enough student athletes who are still the same. They still there's a whole story out there, but there's a whole group of athletes who are, still focused on the main thing, and so that's good to do. We're gonna try and hit a little bit here to the we want to do culture. We ain't doing that today. No culture today. We do culture tomorrow. We gonna drop the mic a little bit. So it's an opportunity to give out a little bit of flowers. It's been a while. Cecil, I don't know if there's some flowers you want to give out. We in this time of tyranny, whatever we got going on out here.
Tyranny.
I have been just loved, particularly over the last few weeks, all the little acts of kindness I know I've experienced. So that's what we try to do here on when I drop the mic. So I don't know, if, Cecil, if there's somebody you want to give a flower out there, give some flower recognition to.
Man, there's so many. I'm just going to stay close to home, and you can let her know I said this. I'm going to put flowers out to Lahua. Number one, for putting up with you. But,
that is a lot.
No, but she has given her heart and soul to Beloit College. And she's given her heart and soul to those young women. There's so many times where I just thought she would have every right just to blast away. But she's been gracious. She's helped, even to the kids. There's some things that happened early on with the kids, but it was an inspiration and a help for me how gracious she was to them, the parents she was gracious to, and how she treats her team and how she treats her players, to me, as a model. She should write a book. And so I just appreciate her, what she's doing, what she's done for that program. Hoping nothing but the best and some great things happen for her in this season. But also as a friend and a colleague, she has just been amazing, and I think the world of her. So when we got to watch them play, and she introduced us out of nowhere, but that's who she is. She goes, "You got to meet the rest of the fam," and she brought us into the fold. That was huge. I really felt good about that, and so I'm just going to say that's been on my heart, and so I'm going to give her some flowers.
You know she loves flowers, and she always has one.
Yes, I do.
They're playing Dominican tonight, so I'm hoping I'm about to jump off and watch to see how they play. She's really. This team is really interesting the way it's developing, and the way they have this session at the end of practice where they call a shout out, and they want to shout out a teammate and say something about it. It's a really good exercise about helping each other appreciate little things that they've seen about each other in practice. So she's trying to, and the impact I see she has on other athletes around the campus who see her and walk up to her, and she invests in the whole operation. So I know she appreciate hearing that. Darnell.
All right, so I have two people. I'm pretty sure you're not gonna. I'm not gonna touch on any one of yours. I'm gonna give you a name that you know and a name that you don't know.
You always
I'm
do that. I feel it. I feel good.
gonna start with the name that you don't know. His name's Joe Palca. Joe Palca was the old head coach at Saline High School, and now he is currently the football coach at Adrian College. Adrian College is a Division III football team, and
Yeah.
this week they went on to beat Valparaiso, which is an FCS school, FCS Division One subdivision school, and they beat them. So I want to take my hat off, give my flowers out to Mr. Joe Palca. This is somebody we did coach against. So we did coach against, played against for many years. So I want to give my shout out to Mr. Palca.
Hey,
My second,
go ahead.
yeah, my second drop the mic is Dante Moore. Dante Moore has
Mm.
been lighting it up the first couple weeks of the season. Last week against Oklahoma State, he led them to a massive victory that we talked about, and that Mike Gundy is still crying about. But nah, they put it on him, 69-3. Dante Moore threw for 3 touchdowns, 200 and some yards, I think 270 some yards before they end up taking him out and putting the backup in. But he's been showing out. I know the first year people was like, first couple years it was like, I don't know about Dante Moore. He transferred out of UCLA to Oregon, but he sat last year behind Dylan Gabriel. But now he's starting to show the promise that I was telling you guys about a few years ago when he was at Detroit Martin Luther King. So um, I'm never wrong, just early. I'm wrong sometimes. A lot of times
Ah,
it's just a little early.
Oh, never wrong, just early.
just
Okay.
you never wrong, just early. Well,
Okay.
I'm
I'm
wrong.
gonna bring one close to home, and so listeners, we're doing a little Blake College centric thing, but I was walking out of my car, walking across campus, and I looked, and I was like, "Who is this?" And it's our former coach, who, and this we were just talking about the important role of the coaches, and Paul Connor. Paul was the
Oh
defensive
yeah.
back coach for Beloit College. He coached one of our personalities, Mo Red, who was on. Mo was an All-American. Mo tried out with, I think Mo had tried out with Packers and maybe with Green Bay or whatever. He had a couple trials, but when we talked about coaches connecting, when I transitioned to Beloit College, one of the people that kind of helped me stay connected was Paul Connery. And part of it was, and a couple of my teammates, they both were from Miami, played at, some powerhouse high schools down in Miami. So they're coming up north. And uh, he knew how to connect with players. The conversations we would have before, particularly the arguments between he's a Notre Dame fan and Michigan, but his ability to connect. And it was funny because I talked to somebody else who knew him, my deacon, who's also a Ducks fan. And the thing he said about him, his library, he said the same thing about him. He said he had a way of connecting with you. like beyond that was not transactional. You know, he would do things. He would bring folks in and connect. We would have conversations before practice that like got you set and just knew how to tap into those things that you really cared about. So yeah, post Connery was good. He was back with his adopted daughter walking across campus. It just reminds you of the impact. You know, Darnell, you know this. You got that goes well beyond the time you connected with players. When I saw him, it was just a warm feeling. It took me back, you know, whatever, 20, 30 years. So Coach Connery, it's great to see you, and just want to send you some flowers. I'll probably drop this video and send it to you. All right, y'all, it's been fun. I feel like I'm back in the mix with y'all. It's been good, Coach. We got you back in the swing of things. Darnell, I know you got to get to do some things after this, but I know you're coaching. Good luck this week, brother, with everything. And you know, when y'all have a chance, check us out again on RSG, realsportsguys.com, and Real Sports Guys on all social media platforms.
Hard working, dedicated, would like to dedicate this to those who never hate it. Can't nothing hold us down, can always go another round. Welcome to the underground, real sports with real sports guys. It's a flex that had his mindset, ready for whatever grind next. My mindset, working with the time left. Hard working, dedicated, would like to dedicate this to those who never hate it. Can't nothing hold us down, can always go another round. Welcome to the underground, real sports with real sports guys.